All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. People keep doubting these Washington Huskies and they keep on winning. And I say this because the Huskies were slight underdogs last night when they took the field at the Sugar Bowl to take on the Texas Longhorns in the college football playoff semis. But when it was all said and done, it was Washington that punched their ticket to the national championship game. Now, in case you didn't know, Michael Penix Jr. is the real deal. You're talking about this young man who was 29 of 38 passing last night for 430 yards with a pair of touchdowns as he lit up this Texas secondary. Washington as a whole never trailed against the Longhorns last night. Now, yes, the Huskies did have to sweat it out in the end, but at the end of the day, should we expect anything else from this team this year? Washington has specialized in winning the close games. And to me, that shows a lot of character because you learn a lot about yourselves in those crucial moments. Who's going to be the guy on either side of the football that's going to step up and make the necessary plays? And for head coach Kalen DeBoer, he has a cast of characters on both sides of the football to get it done. And this is a big reason why the Huskies are undefeated. This is a big reason why the Huskies are 60 football minutes away from being national champions. Now, it wasn't just about Michael Penix Jr. on offense last night. Roman Dunze and Jalen Polk, arguably the best duo of wide receivers in the nation, continue to get it done last night. Dunze, 6 catches for a buck 25, while Jalen Polk had 5 catches for 122 yards, and of course that big 77-yard reception from Penix. This Huskies defense, like I said, going into this contest, it's been more of a bend but don't break philosophy, and we saw that again as they were able to force some key turnovers from this Texas offense, and then late. When the game looked like it was sealed, and then of course the Dylan Johnson injury changed things because Texas really should have gotten the football back with about anywhere between 15 to 20 seconds left. But because of that, when Washington punted, the Longhorns had plenty of time to move down the field, and then of course the gunner for Washington not giving the punt returner for Texas enough space to catch the ball. Of course, he called the fair catch, 15-yard penalty, and before you knew it, Texas was in business. But then this defense made the necessary plays. Braylon Trice, I know that he was tired, but he continued to put enough pressure on Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers late when the Longhorns got the football down into the red zone. And then you can't say enough about this Washington secondary making the key plays late against these Texas wide receivers. Now, credit to Washington, and I talked about the character of this team because they never allowed Texas to impose their will on them. Because you look at it, the Longhorns, they like to get on a roll. And we've seen that, especially their last couple of games of the season. Once they get on a roll, they just pin their ears back and keep coming. But Washington is a different beast. They were going into a hostile environment because, again, the proximity of this game to the great state of Texas, right there in New Orleans, it's really not that far. Texas had an advantage with the crowd, but you know what? Washington's been in these adverse situations all year long, and I think that really prepped them for it. You think back the 2 games against Oregon, the contest against Utah, the contest against Oregon State, the Apple Cup with Washington State. And you know what? It's one of those where the Huskies have just survived all of those tests. And I think they were very prepared to go into that environment in the Superdome last night against the Longhorns. But, you look at it, and this continues to be a special year for Washington as it's one of the finest seasons in the history of this program. And of course, there's a lot of history with this Washington program. You think back to the late, great Don James with some of the fine teams that he had, and some of those great names that came off of those teams, the DeMarco Farrs, the Steve Ettmans, the Napoleon Kaufmans, the Mark Brunels, and so many others. And now Kalen DeBoer and company are 60 football minutes away from being the first program in the history of the Pac-12 to win a national championship in the playoff era. Oregon got to the inaugural college football playoff championship game before they lost to Ohio State. We saw Washington get there several years ago. They didn't get this far. They lost to Alabama in the semis, but nonetheless, these Huskies look a little bit different. Now, it's not the ideal matchup for Houston where the championship game is going to be. And I say that because there were some people that were expecting Alabama, Texas, and of course, Texas clearly is right down the road from them, from Austin to Houston. But nonetheless, Alabama recruits Texas out of the SEC, and of course, Texas is set to join the SEC later on this year. But it's a future Big Ten matchup that we're going to see in the national championship game, and of course, Michigan and Washington were on a course to meet in the Rose Bowl in the semis, the traditional Big Ten Pac-12 matchup. But of course, things changed once Georgia lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. Nonetheless, I am sure that the fans that follow the Wolverines and the Huskies alike will be more than happy to invade Houston come next Monday night. And I'm sure many of them have already reserved their respective travel itineraries. But this is a preview of things to come in the soon to be expanded Big 10, Big 18, whatever you wanted to call it. But nonetheless, you have some storied programs here, of course, with Michigan and with all of their lineage and history. And of course, you can't overlook what Washington has meant to the college football landscape, especially over the last 40 years or so. But on the other side of things, this should not take away from what was a phenomenal year for Steve Sarkisian and Texas. They finally were able to break through and win the Big 12 in their last year there. They were finally able to break through and get to the college football playoff. And our people know that Texas, it's a national brand. And I think that this program is headed in the right direction with Steve Sarkisian. And I think this is a harbinger of things to come for them, as you can expect Texas to be right in this mix to get to the college football playoff for the coming years and make some noise as they look to transition to the Southeastern Conference. But nonetheless, Texas had themselves a phenomenal year. Coming into this contest, I said this was going to be the best team that the Longhorns faced all year, and it was. And I felt that this game was going to be back and forth. I felt that this game would come down to the wire. But it's one of those where after it was a back and forth affair in the first half, Washington really dictated things in the second half. Credit to Texas for forcing Washington to kick some field goals late that allowed the score to be closer than what it was, because the Huskies really had an opportunity, several opportunities, that is, to put it away. But credit to this Texas defense for going out there and making the key plays. But nonetheless, you look at this Washington team, they survived another big test last night, and now they've got to get ready for a Michigan Wolverines team that survived a big test as well in the Rose Bowl yesterday against Alabama. We know what Michael Penix and company can do on offense, but we got to wait and see what the status of running back Dylan Johnson is going to be. He's still playing through injuries. That's one tough kid right there, trying to gut it out for his team. You look at what Washington can do defensively as well. And I'm looking forward to this matchup, this Michigan defense going up against this Washington offense. And I really want to see what the Huskies defensively are going to be able to do against the Wolverines. I'll be touching base on that within a couple of days. But nonetheless, I think we are in store for a tremendous national championship game. The last two teams that are undefeated from a phenomenal college football season. And of course, when it's all said and done, only one of them can claim that they were national champions, and only one of them can claim that they finished the season unblemished. But nonetheless, if you're the Washington Huskies, you went down to New Orleans last night, took care of your business, and now again, you're just 60 football minutes away from doing something very special. Kalen DeBoer, excuse me, and his Huskies have been a special team all season long. And let's see if the Huskies have what it takes to get past the Wolverines next Monday night and claim the national championship. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365 that you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. And just before we chime off here, David, how are you doing? Happy New Year to you. You're saying it will be a good game, and I want Washington to win it all. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. I really do. I think this has been a phenomenal season for college football, and it's one of those. I had touched on this before, like in previewing the semis. This is one year that you can truly say each of the four teams that made the playoff this year had a legit shot of winning it all. I really felt all of them were are championship worthy. And I think that showed in the close contest yesterday. And I think it's going to be a close contest next Monday night in Houston. And at the end of the day, the committee got it right. These four teams definitely deserve to be there. You could make a legit case for Georgia. Some people were talking about Florida State as well, but nonetheless, the committee got it right. And I think we're going to be in store for a tremendous championship game next Monday night. But with that said, this is William Martin signing off once again, thanking all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.